excited. Welcome, Rep. Tucker. We're excited to hear about your campaign for district attorney. I'm gonna highlight you for everybody and take it away.
Great. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. And good evening to all the members. It's good to see everybody here. As Chris said, I'm running for district attorney. And what I thought I would do is just take a few minutes this evening and talk a little bit about what I believe is my experience that I've gained through two separate careers in public service and see how they pertain to or touch upon the job of district attorney. I've been a state rep now. I'm in my 8th year. And if you take a look at not only my committee assignments, but a lot of what I've had the opportunity to work on, I think it bears directly upon the job of district attorney, which, by the way, is an open seat with John Blodgett retiring. In my time at the State House, I've served on the Judiciary Committee. I've served on the Public Safety, Homeland Security. I currently sit on the Mental Health, Substance Use Disorder, and Recovery Committee. I think all of those things play into the experience of becoming what I think is a 21st century district attorney. If you take a look at some of the special things that I've done, I guess the best way I could say is to take a look at bookends from one to the other. I was the co-chair of a statewide commission on adolescent crime, and we did a really deep dive with a blue ribbon panel and came up with some really good evidence-based ways to keep adolescents and juveniles out of the system as long as we could. If you go all the way through the system, I've actually done quite a bit of work on prisoner reentry. I've worked with some really great organizations, ROCA, UTEC, you may be familiar with some of them and the work that they're doing. 4 years ago, I met with those folks. They specialize in reentry services. We took a zero line item and got $1 million. I was able to double it last term, and the House budget that just came out, we've got that number up to $6 million. That's to take care of folks who are about to reenter society. We know that it's a recipe for disaster if somebody is simply released to the street with no services. I've done quite a bit of work with Sheriff Coppinger in Essex and Sheriff Katusian in Middlesex County. And I've actually been to the facility several times at both places and met with particularly the young men that are involved. Even at some of the small things we're doing, we're making sure that they're signed up for mass health before they re-enter society. We have a place for them to live. We have their state ID for them. All of these things exponentially really favor good outcomes. And one of the things that I can't take credit for this saying, somebody told it to me, but it's something that's been helping me to drive the campaign. Better outcomes for offenders equals better outcomes for society and better outcomes for public safety. I believe that that's true. I've actually been involved in some things I never thought I would at the State House. I know I've told just at least a few of you this story. A few years ago, I watched one of the films at the Salem Film Fest, and one of the ones I chose to watch was a very raw and graphic documentary on solitary confinement in the Maine prison system. And it took 125 men that were in this solitary confinement, some who were there for years and were released to the street. There's no chance of success. What the state of Maine did was they introduced programmatic changes involving psychiatrists, therapists, counselors. At the end of the film, that 125 count was down to single digits. I was so moved by that film, I contacted the director. I got a copy of it and I brought it to the State House. I played it for so many different committees. And as a result, some of you may know this, when we did criminal justice reform, a big piece of it was prison reform, and a big piece of that was solitary confinement reform. I did it with lots of other folks, and I'm proud to have played just a small part of that. I never thought as a career police officer I'd be involved in something like that. But if you take a look at the folks that are in there, they deserve to be heard. They deserve to have a voice. There's not a natural constituency. Nobody's standing up for folks in solitary confinement, but I thought it was important. I also spent 32 years on the police department. And I look at my career in the police department really in two phases. The first was my work as a detective. I spent almost 24 years as a detective. 17 of those, I was the captain in charge of the detective division. And as such, I oversaw every major investigation from unattended deaths to homicides to robberies to sexual assaults. There wasn't a case that happened in Salem that didn't have to come across my desk. The other part of it that I think is important to note here is the interaction that I've had with victims of crimes. I've sat with hundreds and hundreds of people who've been victimized by crime. You can't help but think of how much these folks have suffered. Fast forward a little bit into the opiate crisis, particularly with fentanyl. I've sat with the families who have lost loved ones to the grip of addiction. So many good folks, so many people we've lost. Let's face it, we got this wrong for a long time. We had a punishment-based system. And anybody that studies this knows that we were wrong. We missed it on rehabilitation. We missed it on treatment. We missed it on community-based corrections. Now, that's not to say that some people who offend don't deserve punishment. Some do. But I can tell you the work that I've done on fentanyl trafficking, there's a world of difference between punishing someone for trafficking in fentanyl, which they deserve a strong punishment. There's a world of difference to somebody who's caught up in the grip of addiction, who really needs to get help and doesn't need to get locked up. There's lots of those types of cases that I worked on. I actually did some tallying up. I came to about 1,000 cases that I've worked on in my police career directly with the district attorney. I sat on the domestic violence assessment team for many years as a detective. I took 1,000 cases from arrest to verdict. Now, I know a lot of people look at the job of a prosecutor and they'll look at me and say, I've never prosecuted a case. And that's true. But I think a 21st century prosecutor is not about securing as many convictions as you can. It's bringing a breadth of experience and seeing firsthand how crime affects people and being smart about it. As police chief, I oversaw 115 men and women that served there. I also had a $10 million budget. I'm the only candidate in this race that has that type of administrative experience. I'm actually very proud of some of the work we did during my tenure as police chief as well. I like to think in Salem, we were very innovative. We created a community impact unit specifically to deal with folks that were homeless or housing insecure. What we found was folks that are in the grip of addiction, had mental health issues, or in many cases, dual diagnosis. We were simply picking them up off the street for quality of life crimes, cycling them through and through and through, until at some point, judges at Salem District Court got tired of seeing them and will put a bail on them, $200, $300. It might as well have been $1 million. They weren't getting out. So let's think about that. Let's take a snapshot in time. We have somebody sitting in Middleton jail for 2, 3, 4 months at a cost of about $8,000 a month. And when they come back out, it's just a matter of time before they cycled back in again. What we tried to do, and we did it successfully, is bring those folks in for treatment. Under my tenure, we hired 2 part-time mental health clinicians. And I have to give Chief Butler credit, who succeeded me. She took that even beyond and got 2 full-time positions. What did these folks do? They were embedded in the cruises with police officers, not to replace the police, but to complement the work that they were doing. And we know that every study across the board will tell us when you have mental health clinicians working with police officers, the outcomes are exponentially better, so much better. We also put a program together that many departments followed us. If we had somebody that overdosed, the next day they got a knock on their door from the police department and the clinician offering services. Now, many times, if it's a first or second overdose, those folks were not ready yet, but at least they knew that somebody cared. We know that those folks in addiction sometimes need 6, 7, 8 different times, but we're not going to give it up. We did a lot of that. And as I said, Chief Butler took it on well beyond where I even had it. I've been an attorney for 21 years. I'm a full-time adjunct member at Salem State. I teach a class at Salem State every semester. I teach a class at North Shore Community. I've been doing it for over 2 decades. I teach the next generation of police officers and criminal justice experts coming in. I know, as I said, that some folks have said that I don't have any prosecutorial experience. I don't. But what I do have is experience. I have criminal justice experience. I think I have sound decision-making experience. I have the administrative experience. And I believe that what the district attorney's job is not to be in court. It's not to be a trial lawyer. It's really to set the vision. And I think when you do that with integrity and you do it with leadership, and that permeates all the way down, then you have an office that secures justice and doesn't simply secure convictions. I asked one thing. And I believe that when experience meets opportunity, I think great things can happen. All I'm asking for in this race is an opportunity and your support. I appreciate it. Many of you have been with me for 8 years in my 4 runs for state rep. So many folks on here helped me get 3 times the required signatures. So many faces here. I am indebted. I'm deeply grateful. This has been an opportunity of a lifetime. I've had a full career in public service, my entire professional life. And I'm looking to do one more thing and to try to make an imprint. John Blodgett's been the DA for over 2 decades and Kevin Burke before him. And both have really strengthened so many different areas. John Blodgett in particular on juvenile justice and juvenile crime and doing some great things around restorative justice. I'd like to take those. I'd like to continue them. I'd like to make sure that we secure justice and not just convictions. I appreciate it. And Chris, thank you for the time tonight.
Of course.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions for Rep. Tucker? I'm going to get out of this spotlight view, get a gallery here.
I do.
Julie.
Yeah, it's not a question. I first met Paul when I was the athletic department secretary at Salem State. We won't mention how many years ago, will we, Paul?
5 years.
But he was a patrol officer and he did a lot of our hockey games. And he was a true gentleman there, and he's a true gentleman now. And if we can support anybody, we need to support Paul Tucker. I'm proud to know Paul.
Thank you, Julie.
And we won't talk about how many years ago that was, will we, Paul?
No. Thank you, Julie.
Do we have any other questions for Paul?
Just wishing
Yes.
Paul the best. I'm sure he doesn't need it.
Thank you, Lucy. Thank you. I appreciate it, Chris, and thank you for having me on short notice. I'm deeply grateful.
Oh, of
I
course.
think I have a question.
Yeah,
Uh,
Rod.
Paul, will you be circulating bumper stickers again? I had to get rid of my old car with my Paul Tucker bumper sticker and I miss it.
I am happy to report, Rod, that I have 150 bumper stickers that were delivered to me, and they are on my dining room table downstairs. So I will get that to you. And Rod, thank you for the signatures that you've done, and Julie, and that sign that you had, I think made all the difference, and I appreciate it. So yes, the bumper stickers are here.
Give me one, Paul.
Will do.
Give me 2 for somebody else we know.
Okay.
Excellent. Well, then, thank you so much. We really appreciate your service as our rep. And so we're excited to see you grow into this new role. Excited to see you get it. So, yeah.
Thank you, Chris. Much appreciated.